Can you do a full story recap of Omnath? So Omnath is a very interesting creature because he has had a lot of different copies printed of him, but very minimal story. The first time we saw Omnath was on World Wake. It's the second in the Zendikar block, and from what we can tell, he is the embodiment of mana and maybe the origination point of mana on Zendikar. On that story, he is locked away on a plateau in Ondu, which is the plains region, or one of the plains regions of Zendikar, surrounded by a series of hedrons and animal bones that keep him trapped there. But as a part of the Eldrazi being released and escaping, the Hedron network that had trapped Omnath also releases Omnath. He then spends the next X amount of sets fighting against the Eldrazi. The next time we see Omnath, he's the Locus of Rage. He's actively fighting against the Eldrazi. This is in Battle for Zendikar. And he now has added red mana to his mana pool as he's fighting against these monstrosities. You can see him sitting on the bismuth, creations created by Kozilek. We then see Omnath in M20. He's added blue mana and has become the Locus of the Royal. The Royal is like a center of mana on Zendikar in general, and it's one of the things that makes it so mana rich, but also mana chaotic, and creates all these really powerful elementals. Omnath kind of being the representative of that, but literally no story beyond that. They've added blue now and continue to be modern playable. At this point, the meme of Omnath was created, where he's basically going to be adding a new color every single time. The next time we saw him was Zendikar Rising. He's added white mana. I like to think this is caused by Nahiri raising up the Skyclaves and just white mana becoming more powerful. He also, in the original set, did combine specifically with green and white mana and red mana to fight the Eldrazi, with white being the final thing added. And now he's just living his best life, trying to absorb all mana on the plane and become the representation of mana for Zendikar. In my head, I also like to think at this point, he is trying to become kind of the god that the Eldrazi weren't, filling the void that their power leaving Zendikar has left with the mana of the Royal. I also think it's a sad that he isn't featured more in the story, because he is literally the opposite side of what Nahiri is trying to do on the plane, and I think it would have been a really good antagonistic relationship to see him fighting Nahiri. Sadly, we don't know what happens after this, but the last time we saw Omnath is he has added black mana in the version of Phyrexian mana. Omnath was completed. There are obvious key characters that survived completion, but there are also a lot of characters that did not survive completion. He is just a representation of the elements, so it's possible that once cut off from Phyrexia, the other elements will just rebirth an Omnath in its stead. I do hope we get a pure 5-color non-Phyrexian Omnath next time we go to Zendikar. But for all intents and purposes, I think Omnath has died, or at least it is good to consider dead until shown otherwise.